On the show today, we'll discuss opportunities in the drive for autonomous database services. As always, you can join the conversation with the hashtag that's Beyond Markets. You can follow my Twitter handle too at Esther Ubodaga. Now, with strong growth momentum in developing the African market, technology enthusiasts said the next step for enabling businesses on the continent is autonomous database services. Adebayo Sanni, Country Managing Director at Oracle, joins me to share more insight on this. Adebayo, thank you so much. Pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much.
So Oracle is setting a new industry standard. You're expanding your cloud platform autonomous services. Help us understand what this new feature entails.
Okay, and thank you for having me. Before we look at autonomous database, I think we should first try and understand, what machine learning is. Okay. Machine learning is an application part of artificial intelligence that helps provide the ability to automatically learn and improve from experience without being explicitly programmed. So the way we look at it is Oracle's autonomous database is leveraging Oracle's application using ML, but in this case, much smarter.
Interesting. Now, I know that you had this is sort of an improvement from what you had before, the Oracle Autonomous Database. What you're having now is the Oracle Cloud Platform Autonomous Services. Help me understand this. How is it different from what you've had before?
So typically, as you understand, we live in a data-driven world. And I need to mention that presently, data is probably the most important resource in the world. It's even much more than oil. And ensuring that we have secure data and database is really very critical. Now, what Oracle has been known to is to have one of the world's most popular database, and we've actually upgraded this to the 18C. What we typically would have is this would be on your premises and sitting down in your data center. With the evolution of cloud, what we're able to provide customers is the ability to avoid the CapEx investment, and then where they have the services of this database in the cloud. The step further that Oracle has actually gone is this already smart database is now being smarter, but now using machine learning, which is really what the world is talking about today, AI. The ability for it to self-improve, increase its experience while it's actually still learning.
Can you give us a typical example how a company would use this, the kind of company that would need this, and how it will benefit them, maybe from a cost perspective and so on?
I'll give an example. One of the biggest beneficiaries of it, and I believe this cuts across the entire sector when we think about Nigeria, but if I look at the financial services sector, customers are growing every day, and customers' demand is amazingly at the highest level. They want their banks to be 100% uptime. Now, the challenge that you're facing is you have downtime that you experience with typical database where they need to do standard routine maintenance. We're seeing from the financial services sector that a 1 minute downtime can potentially cost a bank anything between 30 to 100 million naira every single minute. Now, if you want to plan downtime, which is normal as we've seen typically in the past, that has its significant cost. Now, with the autonomous database that the banks would implement, would avoid a situation where there will be any downtime, because what autonomous database does is it self-repairs itself, it self-secures itself, and repairing itself is for it to potentially position itself to be able to avoid either the cyber attack or as well to avoid any downtime. So that saves the company, the bank in this case, a lot of money.
A lot of money. Let's take a few steps backward and talk about cloud.
Sure.
This feature called cloud, and how it's just completely revolutionized how many businesses conduct their businesses. I mean, it just seemed like just yesterday we didn't have it, and then the minute we had it, everything just changed overnight. Help us understand the scale at which cloud itself has revolutionized businesses, and how it's helped them for those who have been able to scale and store information and just be better efficient at what they do.
Okay, and that's a really good question. And if you look at how we've traditionally done business. As an organization, for me to use technology to deliver on the promises of efficiency, I need to make capital investment. Sometimes this capital investment are extremely huge, and sometimes it goes into millions of dollars. Coupled with that, it would take several months, sometimes even 2 to 3 years, when you look at from start to full implementation. Now, with the evolution of cloud, what we're beginning to see is the capital investment is avoided because organizations like Oracle have made the investment in data centers across the world to be able to provide exactly the same that you would have at your data center, but at the cost that you choose. So it moves from a capital investment to you paying a monthly subscription. Now, what is that benefit for the global, for the typical organization? It means that I can execute a project that I want to that would typically take 3 years. I can do it in 2 months. So my time to market. The second part of it is that I don't need to have a capital outlay. All I just need to do is I will pay as I go. So as I earn revenue, I'm paying. It also means that I can be extremely competitive. That's for a big organization. It also means that that organization can start to move into adjacent markets in areas where they're typically not. But the biggest advantage when I think about it from a Nigeria point of view is when you start to look at small startups. It means that as a startup, I don't need to have huge capital investment before I can start to compete with the rest of the bigger ones. So that starts to bring in and build a new generation of entrepreneurs. And this is what I believe this country needs, especially when you think about the fact that we're 180 million plus people, of which 60% of them are youth.
37 million SMEs. You know, I'm happy you brought up the issue of SMEs because I was talking to someone from Microsoft yesterday, and we're talking about how SMEs feel about this, sophisticated technology, like cloud, for instance, and some other softwares that will help them better scale and in the long, maybe medium to long term, reduce costs. But for many of them, the immediate costs of using that technology and deploying it, many of them shy away from it because they look at the cost and they think it's expensive. That's why I kept asking the question, how affordable is it? Is it tailor-made for, say, an SME that has 3 to 5 staff, and that's just the size? They're hoping to scale, but I mean, that's the size for now. And budget constraints come into the issue. So I'm thinking, how affordable is this technology for those who need it, not just for those who would benefit from it? How affordable is it? And when these I wouldn't say when these technologies are being put together, do they have those? Maybe not. But of course, at the end of the day, for an Oracle, it's a business. You're in it to also make money. But share your thoughts on, for the SMEs who don't really see or can't see the need or the benefits in the immediate term.
And I think that's interesting. And let me break it down from 2 sides. The first is to look at what, as an organization, what are the key priorities we want to drive profitable growth. For us to drive profitable growth, we need to reduce cost and we need to deliver an efficiency. We need to have competitive advantage. History has taught us very clearly that technology is the platform that can drive that. We've seen that over and over and over again. In today's world, decisions about competitive advantage is tied to technology. So let's first establish the fact that technology plays a key role there. That's one. The second part of it is for organizations to be very, very successful, they need to adopt technology. Oracle typically has always played in the enterprise area, with not as much in the small and medium business, as you said, for the SMEs. But with the evolution of cloud and with Oracle's cloud services, what we're looking at is now providing services to all. So it means a startup, as much as 2 to 3 people in that organization, can start as low, depending on exactly the same service, depending on the type of services they want to deploy, and looking at what technology will support that. And can I afford that? And how will that be as part of my bottom line? The reality is that the OPEX expenses that we're looking at vis-a-vis the potential revenue that you're looking at absolutely addresses that. And that's the beauty of cloud. And that's why Oracle is really excited about what cloud can do for a continent like Africa, and especially a country like Nigeria, where, as you said, the number of SMEs that we have is absolutely staggering. In the past, I've been in Oracle now for a few years, and I remember in the beginning it was difficult to get into a conversation with SMEs because of the biggest issue is Oracle's pricing. But that story has changed. And that gives us Oracle opportunity as well as our ability to be able to satisfy the SME sector.
Do you take them into consideration now as part of your strategy in terms of
In fact,
costs?
the way I see it is 60% of the benefit that we look at from cloud services today is tailored into the SME space.
Let's talk about artificial intelligence also. We've seen it also revolutionizing how banks also operate. I mean, I've seen one or two banks, and I suppose very soon all of them are going to have that feature too, where you have this some automated person somewhere that you can engage with that would help you, do one or two or several tasks that you would ordinarily do yourself. So help us understand how we're, how we're also deploying AI in Nigeria. I've seen what Oracle is doing. Obviously, it's revolutionary. But help us understand how we're approaching it here in Nigeria as businesses and looking down the line in the medium to long term, how it could also change the way we do business in Nigeria.
I think if we look at Nigeria and we look at Oracle, and we talk specifically about what we just recently announced, which is the autonomous database, for example. The beauty of it is, and there's that, and I'll talk about this, where a lot of people believe that jobs will be lost as a result of AI or autonomous or machine learning. And I think that is whereas those concerns are really valid, but they are warranted, because what we've seen is how AI is transforming, as you mentioned, the way we actually do business. We're starting to look at, as a result of the job loss, we're beginning to see amazing opportunities that is created by the entry of AI or the autonomous database. Now, number one, if we look at it in terms of IT, what it starts to help a lot of IT, the information technology team under any organization, it starts to move their job from just maintaining systems. And we've seen clearly that 80% of the work that IT does sometimes is just maintaining an already existing infrastructure. Why do you want to focus on that when you can focus on driving innovation? Why you can focus on using the IT to strategically look at how the company can move forward? This is what we see as exciting. It also means that it's opening up amazing opportunities for a lot of entrepreneurs that are starting to look at where we can focus, we can easily use predictive data to be able to anticipate what sorts of customers would I be getting if I were a startup in this case.
So you think we're focusing, because when many people see headlines and what they see is how jobs are going to be lost, how this AI is going to replace XYZ jobs, and that's what many of the headlines show most of the time. Do you think that we're not focusing more on the benefits? Because I'm thinking, somebody has to operate the machine, operate AI in the first place. So that's the human factor isn't completely lost in the whole equation.
In a way it is when you look at it, because AI and I use autonomous in this case is really where you're typically looking at self-driving. Self-driving means that I am self-managing myself. The system is managing it without human intervention, without human error. It's self-securing because it's securing itself. You don't need to have someone look at our cyber attacks. And it's self-repairing, it means that there's no downtime. So yes, when you look at that, the DBA typically that supports this maintenance typically potentially says, oh, my job is on the line. But no, it moves from being a DBA to potentially a database administrator to becoming a strategic database person, which elevates his presence and makes him eligible for promotion or other opportunities. That's one. The second part of it is when you look at the potential of it. Let's look at what happened when computers came versus typewriters. There was one time they said it was going to take over human job. Today we have more computers, and the way we look at AI is think about technology as technology drives efficiency. Efficiency drives lower cost. All right, lower cost drives demand. Demand creates job opportunities. The amazing thing is that what I see with AI is, as jobs are lost, almost 1.5 jobs are created, and it gives you a positive net effect. This is what we've seen with typewriters. This is what we've seen with Uber. And this is what we've actually seen with a lot of the other areas where there's been a revolution of people antagonizing the introduction of technology.
Okay, I guess, people are afraid of what they don't know. When there's no information, of course, there's always fear. We'll take a short break and come back and pick up from where we left off. I'll be speaking to Adebayo Sanni, Country Managing Director at Oracle. Still with me in the studio is Adebayo Sanni, Country Managing Director at Oracle. Thank you, Adebayo, for your time so far.
Thank you.
Now, this, as Oracle has said, you're setting a new industry standard, so that also means that you have first mover advantage. So I'm thinking to myself that obviously your competition is also going to get on board soon. So what are you going to do to stay ahead of the game?
And that's truly an interesting question. And this, I think Oracle, with over 4 decades of experience and being the organization that is actually being in the forefront when you think about database and the revolution of database. Now, if we look at what we've done every single time, Oracle has always been in the forefront, whether it's our push in terms of being the fastest cloud company in the world today, or the first and the only company today that is able to offer autonomous services, cloud services for our database. That gives us that first mover advantage clearly. But as an organization that has been at this for 40 years, we understand that competition will learn from it and competition will try and want to replicate it. But what advantage we have to stay clearly ahead of the curve is what we're doing at the moment, which we're announcing this, and with the customers that we have, where we have a large base of customers that are already running a database from an on-premise perspective. Some have migrated to the cloud, and the conversations we're having with them is to take this even to the next level, where instead of actually looking at how we're going to move away from labor, because we also have it that when you think about data management, 75% of data management cost is actually labor. So by moving into autonomous, what we're saying is that you can repurpose those FTEs, the full-time employees that are working with you. That saves you huge cost. Now, do they lose the job? No. You repurpose them to do other things. Now, by the time our customers start to embrace this, we're already way ahead before competition ever thinks of being able to catch up. And this is what, for us, is truly exciting, and the advantage of being actually the first and one of the most innovative organizations. Well,
still on revolutionary data management, what are your thoughts on blockchain technology? I mean, I've heard people say it's the future when it comes to data management. There's talk about them potentially even replacing banks. And so I'm just wondering, how does blockchain fit into all this?
No, I think when you think about, you can't talk about blockchain without necessarily talking about cloud. So we've talked about cloud and the advantage of cloud and the savings that we've seen. But then we talk about security, where and what is the true authenticity when you think about running transactions between multiple organizations. And I believe that blockchain will play a massive role in being able to help us transform the way we do business, because there's the level of security that you get from blockchain that does not allow any single entity, when they're transacting, be in control of that transaction, and this is visible to everyone. Obviously, from a public sector point of view, it drives a lot of transparency. In terms of the banks, it ensures that banks are not easily hacked, and as well as where we see money being moved in other countries. We've seen what happened with North Korea trying to hack into the Nigerian system. So you can run transactions on a regular basis with full transparency, making sure that not one single transacting party has control over that transaction. And I think when you think about blockchain and you think about cloud, this is the absolute future, and this is what will really help the public sector, for example, that where the government is saying we want to drive transparency, we want to drive efficiency, blockchain in areas like the military, the Air Force, the police, customs, Nigerian Port Authority, NIMSI, card system.
Well, we're not exactly deploying that yet.
But the conversations are going.
The conversations are ongoing.
The conversations are ongoing, and the government is committed to driving transparency. And what our own responsibility as an organization is to engage the government in being able to deliver on the commitment they made to the Nigerian people, which is to deliver transparency. And I believe blockchain provides that opportunity. So the conversations are ongoing, and we have at least 2 or 3 public sector organizations that are at the verge of deploying this.
Now, when we talk about, yes, blockchain, cloud security, and we hear about those hacks that happened, especially last year, I get the feeling sometimes that those hackers, when new technology comes out to curb their activities, they find a way to familiarize themselves with it, and it would just appear that sometimes they appear to be a step ahead. I know this new feature from Apple, from Oracle rather, I beg your pardon, you've said that it's foolproof and it's,
secures.
Self-secures as it goes along, but I'm just thinking, how do you convince that skeptic who says, you know what, we've seen this happen in the past, so how is this going to be different?
And I'll tell you something that it's a fact. As you and I are having this conversation, there's someone that's trying to hack you, that's trying to hack me, that's trying to hack my company, that's trying to hack your organization. This is for real. Over the last 1 year alone, cyber attack has actually gone up by 23%. So the reality is people are consistently trying to hack, and we all understand the reason why this is, whether for financial reasons, whether for other reasons. That is the reality. The beauty of Oracle Autonomous Database, for example, is where AI is a must for the future, where we have no choice, is you need to move away from the element of human error, which is really what leads to successful attacks sometimes. When you have this database that is managed by a machine that has been given the ability to automatically learn. So I'm learning of the potential attacker, I'm learning of the ones that are of the future. I've learned from the past. I am self-improving, and then I can protect myself. So it means that it's just like as an experienced police officer, as an experienced sniper, when you start and when after 10 years of experience, what are you able to do? You can anticipate because you have seen it before. Now, this is what we see for the future, and why we know that by self-securing, you're able to anticipate what the human would typically not. So we're moving into a different revolution, and that's why it's important for a lot of our customers to look at Autonomous Database as part of the future, because it removes the element of human error that leads to successful cyber attack.
You've talked about how you're engaging with 1 or 2 public institutions, but for the Nigerian business landscape, to what extent would you say businesses are using cloud, applying sophisticated technology and innovation to become more efficient? Because I think about, I know the banks typically, some blue chip, a couple of blue chip companies, but when you look across the business landscape here in Nigeria, would you say that a significant number of companies are on that path already, using technology to reduce costs, protect themselves, and to become more efficient? Because I think about companies abroad, and I know that, it's almost like a given now.
Absolutely.
But for Nigeria, I'm just trying to, is that the situation? Are we in the same?
To answer that question, I want to take you back. I want to take us through just the journey when you think about the recession. There was one thing the recession taught us. Every organization, every individual, and I'm sure it taught you too as well, is I need to think about the future. I need to plan for the future, and in that I am not going to spend much more than I'm earning. As a result, a lot of companies have realized the fact that to rethink their overall strategy, especially their IT strategy, which is really, how do I move from CapEx to OpEx? How do I pay as I go so that if a recession happens in the future, I'll be ready for it? Now, and I'm talking about organizations in Nigeria as a result of that. So the conversations are now ongoing, and adoption is going at a very fast pace. Is it at where we need it to be? No. Do I believe that cloud is really tailored for this country outside of worrying about data residency issues? Absolutely. So a lot of companies, both, in fact, we're seeing a blend of adoption from more in the financial services sector. We're seeing opportunities, same in the oil and gas sector. We're seeing in the utility sector. The reality is that across the sectors, we're beginning to see where customers are realizing, I don't need to make this capital investment because in the next 4 years, I'm not sure what will happen to technology. So why don't I run a subscription model and I pay as I go?
All right, Adebayo, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for talking to us today.
My
pleasure having you on Beyond Markets.
Thank
I've
you
been
very
speaking to Adebayo Sanni, Country Managing Director, Oracle.